I'm here today to introduce you to my fast friend over here, Robert Misko, and he is the Chief Operating Officer of ES3. Quite an extensive background. Robert retired from the Navy after 26 years of service. This included serving as the Admiral's Communications Officer and Emergency Preparedness Officer while in Guam. Robert experienced 13 typhoons during a span of 13 years. In 2002, while returning to Florida to care for his mother, he also became the facility maintenance director at a local nursing home. After updating the facility's comprehensive emergency management plan, Robert gained the recognition of the corporate office, which then assigned him to review and revise all of the CEMPs for the facilities in the region. Additionally, ACA approached him about joining the organization. He then completed all of the prerequisites, including numerous fire education courses. Robert decided that after his safety education was done, he determined he would be happier if he continued the technical assistance of developing the emergency manuals for the healthcare and residential care facilities. Today, together with his wife, Kim, he founded Environmental Services, Staffing and Solutions, known as ES3. They develop and update plans for approximately 200 facilities here in the state of Florida. Kim is also licensed for both skilled and assisted living facilities. Please join me in welcoming Robert and thanking him for his service.
Thank you. I am not going to use the microphone. But I will put emphasis in my voice when I think you really need to hear it. First off, I'd like anybody from ACA here would like to stand up so we can apply to anybody from ACA, please? Okay, I do that for one reason. It's this safe zone. You can talk if you have questions, if you have situations or anything else that you'd like to bring up, you can bring them up without fear of you. Okay? What do we do? Large facilities, 100 bed above. Anybody? Okay. 100 or 99 below. How about 50 to 100? Okay. How many small ones we have? 6, 5. We do have small ones. 14. 42. Okay. So nothing small. Okay. All right. My presentation today is going to be virtually, we're going to take the CEMP, I'm going to break down the emergency power plan, and I'll break down fire plan. You guys aren't going to like me when I start breaking down fire plans, because I'm going to tell you some procedures that you really do need to make happen. Okay? The first picture that's on your checklist there, and we'll get into that checklist a little bit. It's one of those that's right here. This is a tree branch. It came through a roof at a nursing home in Volusia County. There was a resident in that bed. We were lucky. The resident didn't even touch. However, it just gave us a rude awakening on some of the stuff that we need to do to prepare for the weather season, June to November. One of it is trimming trees, the other one is to get your small catch ponds on the side, get those taken down a couple of inches so they can take a little bit more water. What I see, especially in the bigger facilities, you guys will come up in, in April and May, and you'll start putting down mulch. Everything is, street, so they can see a nice facility of the street. No, I don't.
We're going to have to do this for the recording. I apologize.
Okay. All right, I'm going to start over. Can you hear me now? Hello? You're sure?
Switch on?
Well, hang on.
Mic check, 1, 2.
Okay. All right, any questions? All right, we're done. All right. Okay, yeah, there are certain things that we need to do to get ready for hurricane season. You know, with the landscape, everything else, everybody wants to landscape their buildings like at May, June timeframe and everything else, and guess what happens? You know, all that stuff just washes away and it starts to cover up your drains. And next thing you know, you got water everywhere. You got water backing into the building. You've got water in the parking lot. You know, people are getting out of their cars, they're in 6 inches of water. Okay? That's the type of stuff somebody really needs to take a hard look at prior to. Okay? So, with that being said, let's go into the emergency power plan. When I go into your facility, if you were to call me and say, hey, can you come do a CEMP for me? Okay? I'm going to ask you, when was it due? And you're going to tell me in 10 days. Okay. Then I'm going to say, okay, I'll show up tomorrow. It'll be Sunday. All right? And the first thing I'm going to look at is I'm going to look at the emergency power plan. Because what I'm seeing in emergency power plans is I'm seeing stuff that should have been done. When you see your emergency power plan and it was approved in 2018, 2019, it says this is what we plan to do. And that's being approved year after year after year. And I walk out there and the gear's not right. You know, you put something else in or you've upgraded it to the point to where, uh-oh, you need a new emergency power plan. So somebody looks at me and says, hey, you're only here for the CEMP. I said, you don't understand. My name goes on your CEMP. So my responsibility is the same as yours as the executive director to make sure that it's correct. So now we're going to start with the emergency power plan. Then the ED and we're going to walk into the kitchen. And your chef's going to be there. We're going to put on those funny hairnet things, you know. And we're going to ask your kitchen help. Say, hey, what do you do if you have a fire in this hood right here? And they're going to look at me and go, huh? I'm going to say, okay, you have a fire in the hood. What are you going to do? I'm going to go get this silver bottle. Okay? And I'm going to put it out. And I said, you just failed. You just failed. Okay? We'll get into that a little bit more because that's a fun one for me. Okay? But looking at your emergency power plan, I'm going to look at your power bill. I want to see what your power bill is. This is especially for new facilities. They want me to come in and they want me to size a generator for you. Give me your power bill. Give me your power bill for 2 hot months, like July of August of the year before. And then what I'll do is I'll look at the amount of kilowatts and stuff that you had to use to be able to keep your residents and stuff cool, and I'll make sure that we size a generator specifically for that. Now, there's all kinds of fuel for emergency power sources. Okay, you got diesel, you've got gasoline, which we really want to stay away from gasoline. We got propane, we got natural gas. Anybody here on solar? Solar is coming. I have 4 facilities in Orlando that have got solar already. Okay, and I've got an emergency manager in Brevard who says, I'm not accepting solar. So we had a conversation the other day and I said, hey, look, these guys spent $60,000, $70,000 putting this stuff on their facility and you're telling them that you're not going to accept their emergency power plan. Well, ACA hasn't come back and told us, given us any direction on solar yet. And I said, I suggest you get trained up on it because it's coming. You got a couple of different items with solar. We'll get into that later. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to look for a generator placement. Where are we going to put this generator in? I've got generators that have the pitch of the building where the water runs off the roof right onto the generator. You know, how fun is that? Especially in Florida. Okay, we take a look at the fuel, the natural gas. If you got natural gas, it's golden because you got an unlimited supply. Okay, If you've got propane, a lot of the misnamers for propane will come up and say, okay, I have a 420 tank here, all right? Or I've got a 120 tank. It's good for 120 gallons. It's a 120 gallon tank. Guess what? It only takes 100 gallons. ACA calls me and says, hey, you wrote this plan and it only goes to 80%. And I said, okay, so I got to train you on propane. Propane is a liquid that morphs into a gas, okay? And you got to have room for that expansion in there. That's why even at 120 gallon capacity, they can only fill it to 80%, okay? And then what we'll try to do is we'll turn around and we'll take a look at some of the equipment that you got to put on this generator, okay? Have you got elevators? You got a hood system? Have you got the whole, you want the whole house or do you want the whole facility on the generator? Very few of the large ones have done that, have gone to full-blown generators that carry everything, okay? Very few of them. What they'll do is they will put all of the central ACs on it, which means that you've got to relocate your residents to a conditioned area that's covered by those air conditioners, okay? Because who's got P-tax? Everybody got P-tax? Yeah. Normally, a lot of your generators don't pick up the P-tax. They'll pick up the central units. And then we've got some larger ones in nursing homes, believe it or not, that the automatic transfer switch will take on the centrals, and then they'll have a manual transfer switch where they can bring the P-tax online. Okay? So then what we'll do is we'll start doing load calculations. What do we do for the amps, what it takes to start these generators, to start the air conditioners, even the, how many guys got elevators? Yeah, elevators. I'll tell you a story about elevators. I got time. You know, and we'll take a look at all the amps, and we'll make sure that that generator and that fuel load can take it, okay? When I say fuel load, we'll say we get a matrix, okay? And it's kind of like I just had a facility in St. Petersburg. Had a 100 kW Kohler that did the entire facility except for the AC in the dining room, and that's where they were going to condition the air for the residents, okay? And, you know, there were 118 room beds, I think. And it said in their emergency power plan that they would allow the residents to go back to their rooms and stuff on the second floor. How are you going to get them there? You know, they're all in walkers, wheelchairs. In fact, the memory care is on the second floor. How's that going to happen? And then it turned out that when I actually went out and looked at the generator, it was diesel, 100-gallon tank. That was it, 100 gallons. And it said in his old emergency power plan, hey, I've got 362 hours worth of fuel. I'm like, you got less than 24 with the burn rate of everything that you say that you want to put on this. You got about 24 hours of fuel if you're going to run that elevator and stuff. So there's another emergency power plan I had to get stuck with. So we talk about 120, 420 tanks. Each one of those tanks carry 100 gallons. You get a 250-gallon tank, that is 200 gallons. 500-gallon tank, 400 gallons. Some of the discrepancies that we see in the emergency power plans that have been submitted and approved is they're doing their own load calculations. I got 500 gallons. No, you don't. You got 400 gallons. So now you're missing 100 gallons, so what? You're going to be short. You're going to be sitting there, generator's going to be fine except for one thing, it's not going to run. You don't have any fuel. All right? Let's talk about transfer switches for a minute, okay? There's a couple of, in the smaller facilities and stuff, there's a couple of counties, Orange County and Broward County, and they make you have transfer switches. Okay, some of these smaller facilities, you know, they run extension cords and do all this stuff, and you know, that just puts a trip hazard. That's just another hazard you got to watch the residents navigate every time. But they start talking about what's in accordance with NFPA 70. You know, you have to have a transfer switch. And it's like, I know NFPA 70 backwards and forwards. It doesn't say that. What it does say that is if you are going to access your circuit breaker panel with the emergency generator, it will be done through a transfer switch. You guys have probably seen this sometime. You know, they'll take that 30 amp cord coming from the generator and they will plug it into the dryer outlet. Anybody, am I ringing bells here? Anybody? Not yet? All right. They'll plug it into the dryer outlet, and what they'll do is they'll go to their circuit breaker panel and they'll flip off the main. And that's calling backfeeding your circuit breaker panel. Then you shut off everything on the panel, and then you bring on the circuits that you want. Right? It's illegal. Don't do it. And it's not safe. Because when power comes back, it's going to come back all at once. If you fail to throw that circuit breaker, the surge is going to, one, it's going to blow out your fire alarm panel, okay? And two, the possibility of causing a fire, okay? So, all right, gasoline generators, try not to do gasoline generators because they do hot refueling. In other words, you know, the fire department's going to tell you, hey, you want to do gasoline generators, you got to let it sit for 20 minutes before you refuel. Okay, we don't like to do that. You get it out in the water, you get it out in the rain, and you send your staff out there, hey, Jimmy, I know you're the maintenance guy, go out there and refill that generator. What do you mean? It's got 90 mile an hour winds out there in the training. I didn't ask you that, I just told you to go do it. So what happens? You put him at risk, okay? So you got the windy conditions, all right? So let's talk about first responder visits. How many people now, when we get into the hurricane season and say there is a tropical disturbance and stuff out there, you start getting all kinds of visitors, right? Everybody getting visitors? ACA's showing up. They want to see you start your generator. Fire department showing up. They actually got a tape measure. They want to see how far you're setting your generator up from the house. You know, the ombudsman showing up. You know, the police are showing up, everything's taking temperatures of the building and all this other stuff. Yeah, you're shaking your head, you know where I'm coming from. Yeah, it's like a parade going through there. Okay? So you got to be concerned with that. Let's talk about carbon monoxide detectors here for a minute. In a lot of places, when the fire alarm control panel, the people who come in and work on the FACP, okay, they have all the associated smoke detectors and stuff with them. Some of them are dual quad, some of them are dual smoke detector, carbon monoxide detector, okay? I don't understand why they put them on the ceiling though. That's the thing that bothers me. If you take, this is a portable right here, all right? During the instructions to how to mount this, waist high, right there. Carbon monoxide is a heavy gas. It doesn't get up that high. It gets up this high. So you need something down low where it is going to sound off at. Waist high, okay? Where do we usually put these things? One, if you've got gas, put them in the kitchen. Kitchen should have one, okay? If you've got gas dryers, anywhere there's gas. The windows close to the bedrooms, closest to where you have your generator set up at. Put it in there. If you have a bad window seal or something, gets sucked in, this will let you know. Change the batteries when the time changes every year. And check it every month. ACA will be looking for that. Fire department's going to look for it. Some of these, this is one you plug into the ground or plug into the bottom outlets. That's how low it can, it can go. So it works off of your utility power. When you lose utility power, it's got a battery with it. Okay? So it'll still work. All right? Any questions here? All right, I want to go. He stole my outlets. Okay. All right. I don't know what he did. He took it and probably going to. This is a surge protector. What I had sitting next to it was a power strip. There is a definite difference. Okay? Surge protector, any type of surge or anything else, this thing will pop off. One of the things that we do not put in here, anything with a motor, do not put it in here. Okay, whether it be a refrigerator, oxygen concentrators, things like that. Beds, nothing. Nothing with a motor in these things. Okay? Power strip, the regular power strip is nothing but an extension cord. All right? It's just an extension cord. Hopefully I'll get that back. All right. Anybody thinking about going to solar? All right, we'll skip solar. Let's go to fire. You guys are going to love this. All right. Power sources for the fire alarm control panel. All right, you usually have utility power. That's coming in from the pole. Once that drops, you have 2 batteries in that fire alarm control panel. Should pick it up for 48 hours. I caveat should. It doesn't always happen. Sometimes you're lucky if you get 24. Okay? A lot of people say, hey, I don't have to put that on my emergency generator because I got battery backup. Don't think about it that way. Okay? Your FACP needs to be on that emergency generator. Okay? Now, in the larger facilities, like what you guys got there, you have what's known as an FAAP, Fire Alarm Annunciator Panel. Should be at the first, at the entrance into your building. As soon as the first responders walk in, they're looking for it because that will tell them everything that the FACP does. Okay? That will tell them what zone, where the issues and stuff are. That's where they go. They'll go to that and then they'll disperse from there. Okay? So, when you start hooking up your generators and stuff, make sure your FACP, your FAAP. If not, you're winding up. How many people here are familiar with Firewatch? All right. I'm not even going to go into it then. Okay? If you know when they're supposed to be and what they're supposed to do, I'm good with it. One of the things here for a fire plan, though, secondary notification. You got to have it. That's secondary notification. If that dialer is not working on your FACP, okay, you could be doing everything you need to do, and guess what? Nobody knows about it. When the winds, the tropical force winds, when they reach 39 or 40, and sometimes it's different in different counties, okay, first responders are not coming. You guys are on your own. I know you're shaking your head. You've been there. You're on your own, okay? Excuse me. And what they'll do is they'll stack the calls at the actual fire station. Emergency management won't even get in there for stacking calls. It'll be done at the fire station, okay? So if you have a medical or a fire emergency, you got to be prepared. Have your maintenance staff be prepared to do it themselves. That means you might want to get a couple of extra fire extinguishers. You might want to go over a couple of extra fire drills, okay? Fire doors. Let's talk about fire doors for a minute. Okay, long hallways. We got long hallways here. Any of the big buildings? You get a fire door in between. Usually rated for an hour and a half, somewhere in there. Doors to the rooms, usually rated 20 minutes. I think 20 to 40 minutes. No, 20 minutes. 20 minutes, okay. The first line of defense for fire, if you've got those doors, if you've got long hallways and stuff, and you've got fire doors, it's called compartmentalization. Get everybody out of the affected compartment, move them to the other side. Move them to the other side, and then you can disperse them back, like to the dining room or somewhere else like that. All right? One of the things that we do is, it's kind of like a daisy chain. We have 2 people go in, we help the individual out of bed, get them in a wheelchair, get them out, and then somebody takes them from the front of the room, past the fire doors, and then they just get taken down there. And that's how you get those guys out on a quick basis. Okay? Daisy chain. All right? This is where it's tough. How many nurses I got here? All right. Have you got anything you can throw at me? No, I just want to make sure she doesn't throw anything at me when I say this. Okay? All right. This is hard to swallow, but this is something, I'll tell you, I did a small 6-bed facility up here in Coral Springs, okay? And when I write my fire procedures, I write them for 3 o'clock in the morning. Minimum staffing, you know, no day workers on site, no help, okay? So, fire alarm goes off at 3 o'clock in the morning, staff goes to one of the rooms, opens the door. They know there's a resident in there, but they can't see him. What do we do? Anybody? I could tell you the staff, when I asked the staff that, I'm going to crawl on the floor and I'm going to go try to pull this, and I said, you failed. And I said, and this is why, all right? And this is tough to find. You got to close the door and move on. You've got to close that door and move on, because you've got 5 other residents that aren't going to get out. If you drop out because of smoke inhalation, nobody gets out. And I got called on the carpet for that. And once I talked to the fire captain over there, they understood. You know, Coral Springs is that's a ritzy place, you know, that whole thing. They don't have a lot of smaller ALFs there, so they weren't really keyed in on this type of thing. But it happens with the big ones too. At night, you know, if you've got 100 residents, what have you got for staffing? What, 4, 5, maybe? Anybody? Somewhere in there? So they've got, let's just say they've each got 20 residents. If they go in and try to get one and they drop out, what happens to all the rest of them? You see what I mean? It's got to be that way. And then somebody meets that they call it the apparatus. That's what the fire truck's called. All right? The first guy that comes off of there, you let them know in room 20 on the 2nd floor, we couldn't get to that resident. And they'll mask up and go get that resident. Usually when people get to this time of their life, they have some type of respiratory issues anyway. Okay? So that's tough. That's tough to do right there. Okay? Impairment of the systems. When the fire alarm system is impaired, when it's got a trouble or something, or it won't reset, okay, chances are we're going to have to go to a fire watch until we can get somebody out there to take a look at that. Okay? And that means that individual's, that's all he does is that fire watch. He's not a CNA that turns, or a caregiver that does, hey, I'm going to go do my fire watch now and I'm going to do that. No, that's his sole responsibility, is that. Okay? Anybody got anything for fire? Anything that I can help you with? All right? Fire drills. Everybody sprinkled here? Who's not sprinkled? You've all got sprinklers. All right? So we don't have a time criteria on how many minutes it takes to get the residents out. Okay? With sprinklers, you don't. Okay? So you don't have to worry about virtually, you know, if you have something happens with your sprinkler system or your fire alarm panel, you still have to have that fire watch. Okay? All right, now for the reason you're all here. I know you guys love CEMPs. I mean, you know, I got introduced to CEMPs when I was a maintenance director. I tried to stand in the corner and they still threw it at me. I couldn't even spell it. Okay? I did get some training on a much higher level. Okay? I was a flight crew evaluator for the Doomsday aircraft.
Which one?
The Doomsday, E6A. I was on the ground floor when that thing was being built. Okay? And I did 5,000 hours in the EC-130 TACAMO aircraft. Okay? And what the Doomsday aircraft did now, and what they've got now, is they ripped out the crew rest area and they put in a battle staff. And what's going to happen, or what the perception is that everything land-based is targets, and we may have to run the war from the air. That's why when you see this on AOL or on the website and stuff, if you see this aircraft flying, you know, you might want to think or something. It's what it is. There is a whole scenario, and that things have to snap in, and if this one doesn't work, then we go to plan B, and then it goes back to A, and There's a lot of stuff there. But that's where I got my training. So I was dealing with emergencies a little bit higher than this one, you might say. We did all the targeting, the nuclear targeting for the Third World War. That's what we did. All right, let's talk about the CEMPs. Everybody has probably by now, okay, everybody by now has probably done the new format, right? Anybody not doing the format? Okay, so pretty much we know the differences, right? There's everything, and I was fortunate when I was making these things up in 2020 and everything else, I had already had virtually this format done because my job is twofold, all right? I want to write this so it can get to emergency management, they can approve it and get in and out of it very quickly, okay? Then I want to write it to where everyone can understand it. I had the emergency manager over in Brevard County said, hey man, you need to start using these other words and stuff like that. And I said, well, hold it. I said, I tried this. I said, being in the Navy for 26 years, you know, I wrote fit reps, officer fit reps. I wrote briefs for admirals, everything else. I said, I could write circles around anybody. However, I got to make sure that the youngest staff member on that staff at night, when they open that because they've got an emergency, I don't need them thinking about what is he talking about here? What is he talking about? I need it in plain English and very simple. And I don't want them to refer back to something else, or moving pages back and forth. They're just going to throw the book on the floor and do it their own way. Chances are when they have an emergency, even like a fire emergency, you know what? They're going to, just like Massachusetts, they're going to forget half of everything you've been trying to do. Half of it. That's what we count on. So if we can get them to remember race, that rings a bell with everybody, right? If we can get them to remember race, we're halfway there. We really are. Okay? All right. So, going through the CEMP, one of the things that's new, and you know, I kind of go to battle. I kind of go to battle with people. They wanted to know the surge, the elevation of all of your properties on the first floor. And I said, why do you guys want this? And they looked at me like, man, you're out of touch. And I said, no. I said, because when you see a evacuation chart for your county, they're already spread out in A, B, C, D. Here's your evacuation zones. All we're going to do is evacuate A and B today. Doesn't make any difference how many feet you are above sea level. You're going. If you don't go, they'll help you, and you won't like it. Okay? But I lost that battle. Win some, lose some. Okay? One of the things that when we talk about memorandums of understanding, okay, the people you got to team up with, all right? How many of you right now could call your counterpart on the MOU and get them on the phone? Just a show of hands. I mean, you know, are they all here? I mean, who knows? But, you know, we have had all kinds of problems where they can't, you know, they won't answer the phone. You know, and here you need to start facilitating, you know, your evacuation. Okay? The other thing is you probably would really do well if you went and saw the facility, or at least pulled it up on the internet. Maybe they'll give you a floor plan. And you could figure out, hey, where are you going to put my residents? All right? One of the other things that's really, really important, when you get a hold of them, what kind of emergency generator do you have? Is it one that covers the whole building? Is it one that we've got to worry about, you know, conditioning just a certain amount of air for everybody? That's key. Because at the last minute, if they are not going to condition the whole area, I can't take you. They will not take you. Reason being, they may have power now, but if you evacuate to me and you're using my area right there that I would move my residents in if I lose power, what am I going to do with my residents? I'm responsible for my residents, but I've got your residents in my cooled area. I can't take you. Everybody shaking their head? We had this happen a lot during the last year. A lot. You know? Wow. And it gets ugly from there. We had people, anybody allowed to go to hotels with their residents? You?
We didn't go by a contract with the hotel.
You have a contract with them. All right. Can I ask you, can I put you on the spot?
Sure.
All right. I got a list, and it might have been from this organization, of 50 hotels in the Orlando area. I'm out of Orlando, okay? That said that, yeah, we'll take you. We'll take you. And then what they did is they did a matrix on all of them. When the building was built, what type of air conditioning they got, what type of generators, and all this other stuff. And it gets down to the, you know, have they got a kitchen and stuff on board, you know, that type of thing. Okay? All right? The biggest thing is that you, as an executive director, you are responsible wherever you evacuate to, is to be able to put your residents in an area that can be environmentally controlled to 81 degrees or below. I had 1 out of those 50 say that they could condition the air in the rooms. That was it. 1. And you don't know about that till you get there.
Not necessarily. You only interview the hotel and the
If you do, yeah, if you do your due diligence.
yeah.
But like I said, I looked at all 50 and I only found 1 that could do it, and I'm like, wow. You know? The other thing is, let's talk about meals during an evacuation. If you have a hotel, they are not going to let your staff prepare meals in their kitchen. Their insurance will not take that on. Okay? Anybody here do the 4 Patriots or Meals Ready to Eat, anything like that? What do you think about that?
I haven't had a chance to use them yet, but this is the first community I've had to ask.
Okay? That, I usually don't promote anything, but I've been at the other end of this where I'm loading food and stuff onto a bus, and then when I get to the place, I'm loading it off, and guess what? There's no refrigerators or anything, because the host facility that we went to just locked up all their refrigerators with food that they've got. So my stuff's going to sit there, even stuff that needs to be cooled. Those meals ready to eat may not be a bad idea. We had them on the ramp and on the C-130s. We had 3 weeks worth. But I understand that they're accepted by the health department. And for the people that have actually used them, you might want to break out and just make 1 meal of them just to see what you think, you know? It might be an idea. That way you inventory it, it's there, it's good for 25 years, it's got a pack-up kit, that's it, you're off. You don't have to worry about, hey, I bought this at this time and all this other stuff. You see what I mean? Just a thought. Just trying to make your guys' life a little bit easier, because I know when the handkerchief goes down, you guys are busy. You guys are busy getting all your ducks in a row and stuff, and it's organized chaos. Let's talk about this checklist. Who doesn't have a checklist? The one that I gave you out here. There's a couple, hang on. These are books that you guys can look through real quick if you want. These are actually approved CEMPs for 100-bed facilities, if you just want to take a look. And how I put together a book and why, that's probably why I'm here doing this today, is because everybody likes it. If you go to the part where it says checklist, after it's in standard operating procedure number 4, SOPs checklist right there. It has the same checklist that they've got. Okay? These checklists, I developed these checklists with an executive director from Maitland, Florida, who had 2 buildings. And we put together, this is exactly what you do 8 days out, 7 days out, 6 days out. It's virtually you go to your morning meeting and you have this checklist. And you can say dietary, here's yours, maintenance, here's the BOM, here's nursing, you know, and whoever else, maybe resident services, somebody else. Here's your checklist. Get back to me by 2 o'clock if you have any issues, and they start pounding this thing out. The next morning, same thing. Here's day 3, then day 2, and then day 1. It's all there for you. I have a tablet up here. If you would like this checklist, I will send it to you. Give me your email, name and email, put it up here, and I'll send it to you in Word so you can modify it to meet your specific facility. Okay? This is something that's very important. Everybody that's used it has really liked it. Okay? One of the things you've got to worry about when you start developing your MOUs, are you going to have an MOU for somebody over on the coast? Okay? And the reason is because that may be your MOU going to, you know, into the hurricane. It's probably more for them to come to you. Okay? So you got to pick one that you want to go to, probably farther inland. You know, don't make it the one around the corner. That's not going to work. Okay? But, you know, for things like active shooter and all that other stuff, yeah, you could have a quick place to go. But still, you know, be careful about where you go. On the transportation side, buses, who got buses? Everybody's got buses. What bus lines you use? Academy? Anybody uses Academy? Wow. Academy bus, you can put together an agreement letter. So all you guys are paying retainer fees for your buses? No? I'm seeing yes and no here. But Academy bus, they don't charge a retainer fee. They don't charge a retainer fee, and they will give you buses. They have all kinds, they have hundreds and hundreds of buses up in New York, and when we start having issues and stuff, they're on their way from here, they're on their way to Dallas, from Dallas, it's all going to show up here. Okay? Fort Lauderdale, Miami, you know, they're all in here. Okay? The key there is to contact them no later than 48 hours prior to tropical force winds. All right? So they can make sure that they have the buses and can get them into you. All right? At 48 hours, once tropical force winds get here, all the buses got to be off the highways. So that means you guys as administrators, you're going to have to pull the trigger early. You're going to have to say, and if it's going to take you 8 hours to pack up and get your residents and stuff ready to go, then you got to say, I got to be out of here by this time. If you wait, you may not get buses. And if you wait, if they have a magic line, okay, and all these bus companies do, they have a magic line. If nobody uses their buses past this line, FEMA gets them. FEMA gets them. And then there's nothing out there. In some counties up north, they say, hey, we want to have a primary and a secondary bus company. And I go toe-to-toe with those guys. I said, you're out of your mind. I said, right now, you know, at all the emergency managers meetings and stuff like that that I go to, one of the first things or the worst thing that can happen, we don't have enough transportation for everybody. We don't. That's to start with. And now you want to lock up another bus company and 4 more buses. Am I going to go to you and say, I would like you to be my secondary bus company, my backup bus company? You know what they're going to do? They're going to laugh. They're going to say, I'm needed as a primary bus company by 100 people out here, and you, no, it's not going to happen. You know, or if they don't tell you and you get that, then you've locked up 5 buses that somebody else could be using. You see what I mean? This happens.
Robert, we are 1 minute from time.
Okay, all right. Well, I'll tell you what. I think we hit a lot of the high points, all right? My parting shot to everybody here, though, you've got a network behind you. Whether it be corporate, you've got other facilities, you've reached out to other administrators and stuff, you've networked here, okay? If you run across a hard spot, be careful what you put on HFRS. You put anything up on HFRS, there's a chance you're going to get a tour from ACA and everybody else coming through because they're going to want to see what the issue is. And that includes emergency management, okay? But be careful what you do there, okay? My parting shot is make good decisions because the media is out there and they're just waiting to stick a microphone and a camera in your face because they may have thought that you've screwed up. And you're guilty out there, regardless of how this thing turns out, you're going to get beaten up by the press. Make good decisions. If you're not 100% sure, call somebody. You can call me. I've got administrators and I've got executive directors. Just tell me what the problem is, and I can help you through it. Same way, don't be afraid to call emergency management. That's what they're there for. Thank you very much. You guys have been
Thank
great.
you, Robert.